dinners, there can be a problem the next morning. Jack's taking his time here, and we can see there's some distress. This never used to happen in the 1960s. Tadahatsu, my boat, and an Onososhi, named after a rainbow bridge. Okay, a couple of backpacks, both of these with George Steck. First one down into what some people call Mitchell Canyon. This is about mile 36 on the right-hand side of the river, and we're going to go down to the top of the red wall and camp, and go upstream a little ways to a route that goes down to the river that the Anasazi used to use. And this is the route, it goes down this ramp. And right in there disappears into a cave. And the cave doesn't run very far, 25 feet maybe. And then all of a sudden, right at the end, there's a hole in the floor, and you can wiggle down through this, what we came to term the wormhole. And look how black and dirty the walls are in here. That indicates a lot of people have used this route, and that's because the Anasazi were using it. That wormhole comes down out of the ceiling into another little cave system, short crawl out to the cliff of a ravine, and that cave was up here. And this is the route on down to the bottom of the ravine. George Steck up here and his brother Alan Steck down here. And these logs that are wedged in between the walls and the cracks have been tree ring dated back to 1200 or 1300 AD. So the Anasazi were using this route too. Down at the bottom of that ravine, you go under the Bridge of Sighs, and then down through another little chimney, and then down to the river. So we picked up water here and spent a little time by the river. There's also a route that goes up to the top of the red wall on the other side, much easier than one we just came down. And back to camp. So we're going to walk the top of the red wall now. We're going to go downstream and exit in another canyon. And the top of the red wall is pretty good walking for the most part. You do have to loop around at every little side canyon you come to, but most of the walking is pretty good. And this was when I was still carrying my 4x5 on these backpacking trips. Buck Farm Canyon. And then we used what Alan Steck called the interstossel route. It reminded him of a route on the north face of the Eiger, coming down through the red wall at mile 49.9. And then along the river, we're headed for Nankoweap, and up Nankoweap Canyon, visited by a tarantula at that camp. And then, of course, George doesn't want to use trails, if there are any trails, so we're going to avoid getting on the Nankoweap Trail and just using an alternate route that he had put together that went up to the rim. And at one point, we actually had to climb up an upside-down tree that had fallen from up above and had gotten wedged between the rocks and in the dirt, upside down. Had to climb up this tree, I don't know, 10 feet in order to get up one of the ledges. But eventually that got us back to the rim. So this was one of George's loop hikes. And it was one of many that were linked together. George did do a length of the canyon backpack all in one time, but there were also others, such as starting at the Paria River or Lee's Ferry and going down to Badger, and then Badger to Soap, and Soap to Ryder, and Ryder to South, and South to Mitchell, and Mitchell to Nankoweap, Nankoweap to Bright Angel, and all the way down to Lava Falls that way. On another backpacking trip, we came in Nankoweap, but once again stayed off the trail. This is a route that goes by Kibbe Butte, and it goes down through a long, steep ravine through the red wall, and down below us, hidden around the corner down here, we could see this big white thing, and we just all assumed, without having talked about it between ourselves, but all just assumed it was a big slab of coconino sandstone that had somehow survived the fall down through the red wall. But it turned out to be a snow field. This is looking up that same ravine, and at the bottom, snow. This picture was taken on June 14th, and at the bottom of a north-facing ravine opposite the one we had just descended. And during this backpack, and we didn't want to be down there in June, but it was the only time the four of us could all get off at the same time. Our schedules required that we be there in June, and it turned out it was very hot. At Phantom Ranch, when we got there eventually, we found out that the lows, that the highs were no lower than 114 degrees during this 12-day backpack. So we loaded up with as much snow and ice as we could find. Camped down there, and I'm going to skip some days here. We're going to do this kind of fast, but made our way farther down Nankoweap Canyon, went up and over the divide to the west of Nankoweap Butte, down into Quaggant Canyon, and then down Quaggant, and then walked along the river as well as we could, and for quite a ways, it's not bad walking, past Malgosa and on down towards the mouth of Little Colorado, walking on the Tapeats ledges here. And I think this has since been picked up, but a piece of the one of the airliners that collided over Grand Canyon in 1956, the worst accident in American aviation history up until that time, and eventually led to the formation of the FAA. And then back up from river level up on the Tapeats bench again, and this was being done in late morning. And once we got up there, within a mile, we found it so hot, so exposed, once we were away from the river, that we all had to turn back and had to retrace our steps. And George thought that there was a chance that we would be able to make our way around a cliff at river level. A piece of piston from that accident also. There were two places on this backpack where we had to wade in the river in order to get by the cliffs. And the first of these was just downstream from Crash Canyon. And we had to wait until the river was lower late in the afternoon until we could get by here. And then farther downstream, just above Tamarapid, we had to do it once again. One of my friends calls this not backpacking, but fingernail backpacking. Sometimes I can't get this to advance the way I would like. So continuing farther downstream past Tanner and down past Unkar. And a little bit below Unkar, we camped on the delta there, and because of the heat, we were getting very early starts. I think we were leaving camp at 4:15 in the morning. So we'd have a quick breakfast, and we got down to Upper Rattlesnake Camp and found a commercial company there having breakfast, and they invited us for breakfast, so we had a second breakfast. And went on down, it's about a mile maybe, down to Lower Rattlesnake Camp, and we even had a third breakfast. Not bad for one morning. But not too far below Lower Rattlesnake, you get forced up on top of the Shinamo quartzite. So what we would have liked to have done is be walking the edge of the river, but this cliff here back at the lower right-hand part of the scene kept us from doing that. And so we had to bypass this section, and we came down back to river level just a little bit upstream from Hance Rapid. This is at Neville's Rapid. So starting down the ravine towards Hance, so back down, and this is really hot stuff. We did this twice, going down ravines that face the southwest, back down to the river.